After 60, millions quietly lose muscle each night without even knowing. It's called sarcopenia. That's why eating the right food before bed can mean the difference between climbing stairs with ease or struggling with every step. Doctors now say one simple nighttime habit could help you wake up stronger instead of weaker. Stay with me. You'll want to know this before tonight. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, the Japanese doctor who lived past 100 and never stopped caring for patients, once said that the body is like a machine that needs gentle maintenance every day. Not a drastic overhaul, just quiet attention, like oiling a hinge, like warming up an old engine. But when we neglect that daily care, when we skip the small things, the entire system begins to slow, and yet we don't notice right away, because the decline is invisible, gradual, forgiving, until it isn't. Peter Attia, one of today's leading voices in preventative aging, puts it plainly. You don't fall because you're old, you fall because you've lost strength. And the strength wasn't stolen. It faded, often because no one told us how much it depended on something as simple and as overlooked as what we eat at the end of the day. So I want to ask you something, not to scare you, but to invite you to pause. What if what you're eating at night, or not eating, is slowly draining the strength from your legs? What if your dinner is too light, too rushed, or too empty, not in calories, but in care? In today's conversation, we'll talk about the silent nutrition mistakes that make our muscles fade faster than they should, and we'll talk about what strong, wise elders are doing differently, not with pills or painful routines, but with a few thoughtful bites before bed. Simple, natural, rooted in science and tradition, because the truth is we don't lose our strength all at once. We lose it in the quiet, in the silence between dinner and morning, but it doesn't have to be this way. There's a belief, quiet but common, that dinner, especially after a certain age, should be light. Just a bit of fruit, maybe a cup of tea, a slice of toast if hunger insists, and many follow this routine with pride. I don't eat much at night anymore, they say. It helps me sleep. But hidden beneath this habit is a slow and silent erosion of strength, because after 60, the body doesn't just rest at night, it rebuilds. And to rebuild, it needs fuel. When we go to bed without enough nourishment, the body begins to draw from its own reserves, and unfortunately, one of the first things it consumes is muscle, especially the muscles in the legs, the foundation of our mobility, our independence, our balance. You don't feel it immediately, not the first week, not even the first month. But over time, the legs that once carried groceries, knelt in the garden, or climbed the front steps with ease, begin to tremble under your own weight. Science calls this process muscle protein synthesis. It's the repair and rebuilding of muscle fibers during sleep, but this repair doesn't happen automatically. It depends on the materials we give the body before resting. If dinner is too light or lacks protein, the body doesn't have what it needs. And little by little, instead of strengthening overnight, we shrink. There's another belief that often adds to the problem, the idea that protein at night might disturb sleep, that eating something more substantial will make the body too heavy to rest. But the opposite is often true. A small meal rich in the right kind of protein can support both sleep and strength, especially when paired with calming herbs or warm liquids that soothe the nervous system without sacrificing nourishment. When we look to the elders of Okinawa, one of the longest living communities in the world, we see a different pattern. Dinner is never skipped. Even late in life, they end their day with a humble but complete meal, a small bowl of miso soup with tofu, seaweed, perhaps a bit of grilled fish. It's not large, but it's intentional. It feeds the body's nighttime rhythm. It whispers, repair, rebuild, rest. And sometimes, a story says more than science ever could. Her name was Anna. She was 72 when her legs began giving out. Not suddenly, but in small ways. She stopped getting up quickly. She leaned on the walls without realizing it. Her doctor ran tests. Everything came back normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. Then someone asked what she ate for dinner. "Oh, nothing really," she said, "just tea. I've done that for years." They suggested a change, not a diet, not a program, just a warm, protein-rich meal each night. Lentil soup, boiled egg, a spoonful of cottage cheese. 3 months later, she stood from the armchair without holding on. She smiled, not because she was healed, but because she felt herself returning. Her legs hadn't failed her. They had simply been waiting to be fed. And maybe yours are too. Not all meals are equal, and not all dinners protect your strength, especially after 60, when the body no longer stores protein as easily, and every bite counts more than before. Some foods may fill the stomach, but leave the muscles empty. Others, in quiet and gentle ways, keep the body fed through the long hours of rest. Many older adults end their day with soft bread, biscuits, or bowls of rice porridge. It's easy, it's comforting, and it feels light. But these fast-digesting carbohydrates, though satisfying in the moment, do little to support muscle repair. They pass quickly through the system, leaving no lasting nourishment behind. For a younger body, this might not matter, but after 60, when muscle mass declines more easily and strength becomes harder to restore, that empty meal becomes a missed opportunity. What does help, according to years of clinical research, are slow-release proteins, foods that digest gradually, feeding the muscles steadily through the night. Cottage cheese is one of the simplest, a boiled egg with a drizzle of olive oil, a few slices of tempeh, or a spoonful of Greek yogurt. These aren't heavy meals. They don't demand much of the stomach, but they offer exactly what the body needs: amino acids that support tissue repair, maintain strength, and protect mobility while you sleep. But it's not just about adding protein. It's about choosing the kind that won't weigh you down. Heavy meats, fried cuts, overly processed sausages, these may offer protein, but they often bring discomfort, bloating, restless sleep. And they burden the liver and gut, which already work harder with age. That's why the type of protein matters more than the amount. Soft, natural, easy-to-digest sources bring restoration, not strain. Some elders have a small ritual, a 2-minute practice, that brings both comfort and healing before bed. A cup of warm milk spiced gently with turmeric and cinnamon. To this, they add a scoop of collagen, not for beauty, but for the tendons, ligaments, and joints. Collagen is a kind of quiet builder. It doesn't shout, but night after night it repairs the scaffolding that holds you up. There's a nurse, retired now, who used to care for patients who couldn't walk without help. She feared that same fate. She'd noticed the way her own knees began to shake when she stood too long. She tried walking more, stretching, but nothing changed, until she changed her dinner, from toast and jam to lentil soup with a soft boiled egg, from sugar to substance. And then she began to sleep deeper, wake stronger. Within a few weeks, her steps became steady again. She would repeat one phrase to herself each evening: "Feed your legs while you sleep." And she did, quietly, consistently, with just enough nourishment to remind the body that it still mattered. Because it does. It always has. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no loud announcement, no dramatic event, just a slow change, almost invisible at first. You might find yourself using the armrest to push off the chair, or feeling less stable when stepping into the bathtub. Maybe your walk becomes shorter, or you find yourself holding onto railings you used to ignore. These aren't just signs of age. Often they're whispers from your muscles asking for help. People often say that's just how it is after 70, but it's not always aging. Sometimes it's undernourished muscle. Muscle that's been gradually thinned out, not by illness but by absence. Absence of movement, absence of protein, absence of attention. One quiet way to notice it is through a simple reflection. Can you rise from the floor without using your hands? It's not a test of athleticism, it's a mirror. It shows how much strength remains, not just in your legs, but in your balance, your coordination, your core. Studies have shown that this simple action correlates with long-term independence. The ability to stand without support is often the ability to live without constant help. And when that strength is lost, so often the loss begins at night. Nighttime cramps, a wobbly step in the dark, a feeling of restlessness while trying to sleep. These are often dismissed as dehydration, bad posture, or even dreams, but they may also point to muscles that haven't been fed well enough to rest and repair. Muscles that twitch, not because they are active, but because they are empty. There's a silent danger in skipping dinner, especially among older adults trying to cut back. The idea of eating less at night can sound like discipline, but after 60, it can also become a trap. Because when the body doesn't receive enough fuel from food, it turns inward. It begins to break down its own muscle tissue to keep things running. That's not weight loss, that's strength loss. There's a metaphor worth remembering. one that echoes from the wisdom of physicians who work with the elderly every day. Muscles are the savings account of aging. Every step you take, every movement you make, every moment you rise without help, draws from that account. And every night you sleep without nourishing your body is a night you make a quiet withdrawal. The good news is deposits can still be made. The account isn't closed. But first, we must notice the balance. Listen to the signals, and treat our strength as something precious, not yet gone, only waiting to be restored. There is a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from textbooks. It comes from observation, from paying attention to what makes the body feel lighter, steadier, more alive. And often it begins in the evening, not with strict routines or complicated plans, but with quiet choices made with care. For many older adults, dinner has become rushed or repetitive, a piece of toast, a bowl of cereal. Something quick, just enough to end the day. But imagine instead a plate that's simple, warm, and designed not just to fill the belly, but to gently restore what the day has taken away. A small bowl of red lentil soup with herbs, a spoonful of cottage cheese with ground flaxseed, half a boiled egg drizzled with olive oil. These are not difficult meals. They require no fancy kitchen, no special diet, just intention, and the understanding that food at night can be a kind of medicine. But food alone doesn't carry the whole weight. There's something powerful that happens when movement follows a meal. Not intense workouts, but the kind of movement that feels like a conversation with your own body. A slow stretch beside the bed, a few minutes of chair yoga, turning the ankles in circles, opening the chest. These gestures, when done consistently, signal to the body, I am still here. I still want to move. Even 15 minutes, between the last bite and the first step into rest, can become a ritual of protection. Food to nourish, movement to awaken. Together, they create the conditions for overnight repair. In Japan, there's a practice known as hara hachi bu, stopping a meal when you're 80% full. Not to restrict, but to respect the body's rhythm. When paired with targeted nutrition, it becomes a beautiful balance. The body is not overburdened, but it is supported. Strength is fed, not forced. We see echoes of this in Sardinia too. In the quiet hills, elders still take walks after dinner, not for exercise, but for digestion, for peace, for connection. This movement after meals helps the body use nutrients more efficiently. It brings the meal to life and carries it gently through the night. And then there are the small stories, like that of Maria, a former teacher, now 78. For years, she ended her day with buttered toast and sweet tea. It was simple, familiar, but her legs had begun to tremble. Going down steps filled her with quiet fear. One day, she made a change. Not drastic, just deliberate. She replaced her toast with a bowl of broth, an egg, and a handful of greens. She started moving for 10 minutes after dinner, even if only around the kitchen. 3 weeks later, her knees stopped shaking. She didn't need to be younger. She needed to be nourished, and she needed to move, even gently, in the direction of strength. This is the protocol. Not rigid, not medical, but deeply human. A plate that supports, a movement that reminds, and a habit that says, I still care for this body, not because it is perfect, but because it is yours, and it still wants to carry you. The strength you keep is the strength you feed. There is a kind of loss that begins so gently, we hardly notice it. It doesn't knock at the door. It doesn't send warnings. It starts when the body is still mostly steady, when we can still carry the groceries, still reach the top shelf, but with just a little more effort than before, a little more hesitation, a little more breath between movements. And then one day, what was once light begins to feel heavy, not because we are broken, but because something inside us has gone unfed. Aging, as many of us have come to know, is not always about disease. It's not always about something being wrong. Often it's about something missing, something that was once part of our daily life, care, nourishment, strength, slowly becoming distant, replaced by habits meant to simplify life, but that sometimes empty it of what we quietly need. There are few things more sacred than independence, the ability to get up when we want to prepare our own meals, to open the window, walk out into the light, and feel the earth beneath our feet without waiting for someone's help. That freedom, that dignity, is not taken all at once. It is worn away in small ways, and often the starting place is the table, specifically the evening plate. The body does something miraculous each night. While we rest, it rebuilds, it repairs. Not just muscles, but cells, tissues, hormones. This process depends on one very simple offering: nourishment. The kind that doesn't overwhelm but supports. The kind that reaches the deep layers of the body, ligaments, tendons, bone, and reminds them they are still needed. And yet so many of us go to bed empty, not because we don't care, but because we've been told that less is better. That dinner should be light or skipped or made of sugar and starch, whatever feels easiest. We weren't told that those choices would echo through the night, that the legs we use in the morning are shaped by what we did the evening before. We weren't told that without the right support, the body begins to draw from itself, slowly eating away at the very muscle we need to stand, to walk, to stay independent, not as punishment, but as adaptation. It's simply trying to survive with what it has. It's easy to think, I'm just tired, or it's age, but sometimes it's not time that's weakening us. It's the lack of fuel to keep our inner fire alive. There is a phrase that holds a great truth. We don't age when time passes. We age when we stop fueling the machine, and the machine is forgiving. It does not need large meals, it does not ask for perfect health. It asks for consistency, for care, for something warm at night that tells the body, you're not forgotten. In parts of the world where people live long and well, they don't chase miracles. They repeat quiet rituals. A plate of beans with olive oil, a small bowl of stew, a handful of soaked seeds or lentils. These are not indulgences. They are acts of respect. This respect doesn't have to come from tradition alone. It can begin tonight wherever you are. It can begin with a cup of warm milk and spices, a boiled egg with greens, a spoonful of yogurt. Nothing loud, nothing difficult, just a soft, steady yes to your own strength. Because strength even now is not out of reach. It's still living in your muscles, still waiting in your bones, still responding to every small offering you give it. And so as you prepare to rest tonight, ask yourself, have I fed the part of me that will carry me tomorrow? Have I given the body what it needs to keep standing, to keep steady, to keep walking toward the life I still want to live? The strength you keep is the strength you feed, and it is still possible. It's still possible.